It's time for the Northwoods Cooking Show. Starring Uncle Roy and Miss Callie, the troublemaking dog.
Hello and welcome to Northwoods Cooking Show. I'm your host, Uncle Roy, and my lovely assistant, Miss Callie. She's out in the living room watching her master eat his pizza, so she won't be in the show today. When there's food, there's Callie. Anyway, today we're going to continue on with our Christmas baking, and we're going to be making a Buche de Noel, which is the French for a Christmas log. Now, you've always seen the Yule Log Cakes, and that's what this is. It's from the French. And it's very simple and very easy to make. And I might just even make it a little bit more intricate and add some extra accessories to it to make it even more fun. We'll see how we do in time. But first of all, we're going to be having our cake. And this is like a sponge cake. It's a jelly roll is what it actually is. And we have our pan, which is a 10 by 15 inch pan, and that's buttered. And then you place a piece of parchment inside that, and you butter the parchment paper too, because you don't want this to stick. So you want to make sure they're both buttered on the pan and the paper. And we'll set this aside, and we're going to be making up the cake. Now the cake is simple, but it takes time. It has 4 eggs in there, and you want to make sure that these eggs are at room temperature, because you want it to be light and airy. So we're going to put these in our mixer, and we want to beat these until they're thick and very light in color. So it's going to take at least 7 minutes to whip these up. So we'll just take and mix these, and then we'll come right back when they get to be thick and light in color. Okay, there's our batter, our eggs now. They're nice and thick and light in color. Almost like a ribbon type of effect with the batter. Now we're going to put in 2/3 cup of sugar, and we'll continue mixing. And you want to put the sugar in 1 tablespoon at a time until it's completely dissolved, and then add the next. So you want to make sure that those sugar crystals are dissolved as you're mixing this before you add the next tablespoon. So it's 2/3 cup sugar, 1 tablespoon at a time until the crystals are dissolved before you add the next one. And then we'll come back after that. And then that's the final tablespoon of sugar. And we just want to let that beat up till it dissolves. And then next we're going to add in 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Now it's the holidays, so make sure you use your pure vanilla. I've got that Madagascar bourbon vanilla, the expensive stuff. Put that in there. Make sure that mixes well in. And then we're going to add our flour. Now with your flour, we're going to be using the cake flour. And you want to make sure you take your sifter and sift the flour onto a piece of wax paper. because we don't want any lumps in this, and you want it to be really light and airy. So for this one, I'm going to be using my regular rubber spatula rather than a wooden spoon. But the same principles apply. We don't want to over mix it because it's going to make the cake fall and get heavier and rubbery. So you want to keep this light and airy, so you want to fold that in lightly. And what we're going to do is, this is 1 cup of cake flour that's been sifted. And we're just going to pour in about half of this onto the top of your batter. And we're going to just mix this in. And just fold it in gently, because you don't want to lose the aeration of the egg batter and sugar. So just fold it in gently, and once all that flour is moistened, you can stop. And that's it. It's only a few strokes. You don't want to over mix that. You just want to get it moist. Then we can just sprinkle on the other half of flour. And then we'll just lightly fold this in to the batter. It's just like, you know, when you make meringue with egg whites and all that, or an angel food cake, and you're mixing in your flour batter with your egg whites, you want to fold it in gently because you don't want to break down that aeration of the batter that we did. You know, we baked it for 7 minutes and that sugar went in slowly. So you don't want to break down all the time and effort you took to make that airy. So you just want to fold it in gently. It's just until it's moistened, and that's that. Because if you overmix, you're activating the gluten, and it's going to be a heavier cake. Now, that's all we have. That's it. That's all that is in the batter. Very simple, very easy. And this now we just pour into a prepared pan here. See how nice and thick that batter is? And then just take and spread it out. And you want to make sure you get the corners, and this is all even. And then we're going to take and put this in the oven at a 400-degree oven, so it's a hotter oven. And this only gets baked for 10 minutes. That's it. You don't want to over bake it, otherwise it's going to be too hard and you won't be able to bend it or fold it. It's going to break on you. And we don't want that. We want this to be soft, because this is just like a jelly roll. There. And then we're just going to take and put this in the oven now for 10 minutes, and then take it out immediately after that. And then we're going to let this cool slightly. Okay, now our cake is done. Take that out of the oven. And we're going to take and invert this onto a dish towel. So let's put that towel right over the pan. And we just take and turn this all completely over. Oh, get my pot holder. And we can just take it off the pan. And then you want to take off the parchment paper too. Oh, I hear a jingle jangle. Oh, Santa's helper, snooping. She must be done with the pizza. Now it's got to go on to the cake. Now while it's still warm, we want to take and roll this up. So you just want to go from the shorter end here and just roll it while it's still warm with the towel wrapped into it. Now we have to let this cool completely before we can frost it. So I'm just going to lay this out on the deck where it's cold outside, and then we can come back and make the frosting. Okay, now we're going to make the buttercream chocolate frosting. Now for this we need a half cup of butter, which is 1 stick, and you want that softened up. And we're just going to beat it for about 30 seconds just to break it up. You want to get this nice and fluffy too. And in a separate bowl, we need a half cup of unsweetened cocoa. And we also need 3 1/4 cups of powdered sugar. And that's gonna go right into the cocoa. And I just take and level this off inside the bag here. That works really good. And we also need a dash of salt. And of course, we use the kosher salt in the Northwoods Cooking Show. It's just a dash, pinch. And then use your wire whisk and mix up these dry ingredients thoroughly. Because you don't want to have any big lumps of flour or powdered sugar or cocoa in there. Mix very well. And then this is going to get mixed in with the butter mixture. Now you just want to mix this up thoroughly, and then we're going to be adding vanilla and buttermilk. So we'll get right back as soon as I get this mixed up. Okay, now to this we're going to be adding 1 teaspoon of the pure vanilla. And a 1/4 cup of buttermilk. And this is going to be our wonderful buttercream frosting. And this is just enough to frost a log. You don't have to make any more. This is just exactly enough that you need. And then I always like to turn it up just a little bit higher, just to get it nice and smooth and fluffy. And then we're all ready to take and frost our cake. Okay, now we're going to unroll our Yule log. This is completely cool, so you want to unroll it carefully so you don't break it. And then we take half of the buttercream frosting, and that's going to be our filling for the inside of the log. And I'll get out my spatula. And then you just want to spread this all over the entire cake. Okay, now we got that all rolled out. Now we just take and roll this back up, and this time we don't put the cloth in it. And you just pull down the dish towel. And since this was pre-rolled to cool, it's going to roll back up much nicer. And just give it a little push, pull back on the towel. Some people take and dust the towel with powdered sugar. You could do that if you want to, but it doesn't stick that bad, so it's all right. And just put this on your serving tray with the seam side going down on the bottom. Oh, look at this. You can't see. Snooping. Oh, look at her. She comes in when everything gets all done. Waiting for crumbs, samples. Santa's helper. Oh, Callie, look at there's Santa Claus. Santa Claus, do you think Callie Allie's going to get any treats this year? Oh, no, I don't think so. She's been a troublemaker all year. Yep. Oh. Cookies. We got cookies in the oven. You want to take and cut at a 45-degree angle on the end. Save that piece. And that one. And make sure they're in the same direction. These are the broken branches of the log. So these all get covered up with the frosting. No drooling. And then we just take and frost the entire cake and go over the ends of those bumps there to make it look like the bumps on the log. And then to give it a more textured look, to look like bark, take your fork and just scrape along the edge, along the edge of the icing like this with your tines, and that'll give you the lines to make it look like the bark of a tree. And that's a Yule log. And then you can take and just add any decorations you want to. You can put it on any type of serving tray. Just add a little Christmas festivity to it. Got a little birdie there. And that makes it even more cute and more pretty. So that's our Buche de Noel. Ain't that right, Callie? Mon chien. And then these are the Kipplens. Kipplens. It's just very similar to Russian tea cakes or Mexican wedding cakes. Swedish tea cakes too is another name for them. But these are called Kipplens. And I believe the difference between these and the Russian tea cakes is that because the Kipplens are made with chopped pecans and the Russian tea cakes are made with crushed almonds. That's the big difference. It's just a kind of nut. But they're awfully delicious. Okay, now we're going to go on to another cookie. These are going to be called Kipplens. And these are extremely similar to your Russian tea cakes, but they taste a little bit different and a little bit better. They're very similar though. And for this we're going to be needing 1 cup of butter. And I just took and zapped mine in the microwave for 20 seconds. That just helps to soften up the butter, because mine was in the refrigerator. And I don't usually keep my butter at room temperature. A lot of us forget to do that, you know, when you're baking. Unless you really plan ahead. But just to soften up quickly, just throw it in the microwave for 20 seconds and that's it. Works out great. You don't want it melted, you just want to soften it. And then we'll take and beat this up until we can break it up a little bit for about 30 seconds. And then to this, we're going to be adding 1/2 cup of white sugar. And you can pour this in slowly at a time so it has a chance to dissolve the crystals. And then we're going to let this beat for at least 3 to 4 minutes because you want to get this really light and fluffy. And that's one of the secrets to your perfect Christmas cookies, is making sure that your butters and sugars are blended really well and that your crystals are dissolved so you don't get that crunch crunch in the cookie. Okay, that's nice and fluffy. And then always make sure to scrape your bowls so you get that sugar that happens to be on the side of the bowl mixed in well with your butter, which I already did. Now, to this we're going to be adding our dry ingredients so we can scrape off the batter from the beater. Because now we're going to mix this in by hand, because we don't want to activate that gluten in the cookies to make them tough and hard. So we have to take this off, and we just scrape off the beater. And to this we need 2.5 cups of flour. And again, too, make sure that you level this off, because you want an even amount of flour, because any excess amount, a teaspoon, can make your cookies really dry, make them harder, make them more rubberier. And we don't want that. We want to have perfect cookies for Christmas time. And 1/2 cup. And also then to this we need a teaspoon of vanilla. And of course it's Christmas, so we gotta have that pure vanilla. Now you don't have to use this that I got. This is the Madagascar vanilla. I get this at Williams Sonoma. It's $20 a bottle. Good Lord. I've said this before, I can't afford that. But last year for Christmas, I got a gift card to Williams Sonoma. So then I was able to get my vanilla. That's great for competition too at the fair. It gives a wonderful flavor. This and the Mexican vanilla I hear about is excellent too. So we got that, and then we need a dash of salt, which is 1/8 of a teaspoon. And a cup of chopped pecans. Now you could use walnuts if you wanted to because they're much cheaper, but it's Christmas, so you want to use the pecans. I know it's expensive, but these are going to be, wonderful treats. So you want to make sure when you give them away to your friends and family, they ooh and ah over them. So you want to use pure butter, the real butter, not margarine. You want to use pecans and not walnuts where it calls for it. You want to use pure vanilla instead of imitation. You want, use the best ingredients that you can get, that you can afford. Because that's going to make a huge difference in taste, and a presentation makes it wonderful. And people are just going to enjoy it so much nicer. And that's all we do. Now we just mix this up by hand. And I'm using a wooden spoon because if you use a spatula, you're going to break the handle. And you really are going to be using a wooden spoon because this is really hard to stir. Okay, now we're going to shape these into our balls. And it's another tip too. When you get your parchment paper and it rolls up on you sometimes, from the roll, just turn it upside down. Very simple. People ask me, oh, how do you keep it from rolling up? Just turn it upside down, it's fine. And sometimes you can just take a little dab of your dough and stick it in the corners too if you want to help hold it down. But this works out just great. Now this is kind of crumbly, almost like a streusel topping. So you want to pack it into your cookie scoop and then roll them into your balls. So you want to make sure you kind of pack them kind of tight. And then we'll just go around and make our Kipplens. Let's take and pack it together and roll it into the ball. And then we're going to bake these in a 325 degree oven, so it's lower. It's not 350, it's 325. And then these get baked from 17 to 20 minutes until they're light golden brown on the bottom. So you're slow baking these, and this gives it a much crumblier texture. Is different then. So it's a slow baked cookie, so make sure it's at 325. Then when we take these out of the oven, let them cool slightly, not completely, just slightly, and then we'll just roll those in powdered sugar. I like to take a Ziploc bag and put my powdered sugar in there, add a couple of cookies, and then just gently roll them around. And then take them out and you can put them down on your counter, on your cooling rack to cool completely. Because you want them slightly warm because you want the heat to melt the powdered sugar onto the cookie. So these are very similar to a Russian tea cake, except they're called Kipplens. And then we'll get these all baked and we'll come back. Well, Callie, how'd you like today's episode? You weren't even around. You were napping all the time, staying in the living room, on the floor. Yep. Santa Claus ain't gonna stop. He's gonna fly right over the house. Yep. Well, this is our question and answer period, so we hope you enjoyed watching our show. Here's our lovely Buche de Noel, the Yule Log, and our Kipplens, which are just like a Russian tea cake. Wonderful, aren't they, Callies? Ooh. Let's see who wrote us this week, Callies. And if you have any questions for us, please feel free to write us at the Northwoods Cooking Show at yahoo.com. And Callie and I will get back to you as soon as we possibly can. We might even put your question on the air so Callie gets her treat. Ain't that right, Callie Ellies? Oh. Come here. Treat. Oh, get over here. Get over here. Come here. You're in positions. Santa's in the way. Oh. Oh, that's kind of a lame Lame sitting. Oh, there you go. Punch, punch, punch. Fire. Dear Uncle Roy and Miss Callie, I was wondering if there's any tips you could give me on container gardening for the winter. Sign, Jennifer of Osseo, Minnesota. Oh, my glasses. Yes, Jennifer. Oh, the biggest tip I have, I always forget this every year too. Because I always want to do I always have my containers decorated with the fall flowers and decorations, and you gotta wait. You say, well, I'm not gonna put my Christmas up till, some people don't do it until the day after Thanksgiving. Well, you gotta remember, they're outside, the containers. And you might forget, depending on your weather, they're frozen solid, and you can't get those decorations out. So my biggest advice is to make sure that your containers are thawed out. If you have to put them in the garage to thaw out, or bring them in the house on the porch or something, because you're not going to be able to ice pick your way into that dirt and get those decorations in there. You have to make sure they're thawed out. I always forget to do that every year. I always forget to pull those containers in, or putting your spruce tips and branches and evergreens out earlier than Thanksgiving and get those planted in there, and then water them really well so that when it does freeze, they're in there good. And the water will keep them green until they're frozen, of course. But that just helps them prolong them. I know people don't want to put them up. They think, oh yeah, they're gonna die real quickly and this and that. Well, if you keep them watered, they'll be fine. But again, depending on your weather, it's gonna freeze solid. So you have to make sure those containers are indoors before you start planting them to warm them up. Or another thing you can do too is, before the weather changes, just to dig out your dirt, and then you can always apply fresh dirt right the day after Thanksgiving, and then plant everything and water it well, and that will prolong the life of the branches, and then it'll freeze and everything will stay in place. But just remember to get that dirt out of there before it does freeze. So I hope that answers your questions. I know I always forget to do that. So for Miss Callie and myself, we like to say, oh, cookie. Healthy eating. Come here, so pretty. Be safe. And spread the sunshine. Oh, say goodbye, Callie, Ellis. Oh. Get to see her back. Oh.